Yo, these are so much more fun to do after the 49ers win. Like it just, I'm sitting there, dude. It was as they were collapsing there in the fourth quarter, and as the Cowboys are getting the ball back with 3.5 minutes left, I'm sitting there like, dude, we have to do another one of these pods where we talk about, okay, this play went wrong and this play went wrong and they need to do this. And it's like, oh my God, dude. And it was so nice to not have to do that. Like, shout out to Dak Prescott, who stinks. I'm out on Dak.
I don't think Dak stinks, but that was a classic Dak Prescott performance against the 49ers.
And why was that?
Because he threw some awful interceptions.
Thank you.
That ended up costing him the game. But he had like relatively good numbers at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's just like, I think Dak's good, man, but I just can't do the thing where we treat Dak like a top 6 quarterback or whatever.
No.
I think he's fine. I think he's good. I think he's a decent regular season player. But until he can like outplay Brock Purdy on the same field, like I don't know. If Brock Purdy is like, I think the critics of Brock Purdy would sort of insert him as like the middling bar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you better than Brock Purdy or are you worse?
Mm-hmm.
Like, until Dak Prescott outplays Brock Purdy on the same field, like there's no way I can legitimately look at Dak Prescott and be like, he's better than Brock Purdy. Given that he hasn't won any playoff games, Brock's already won a bunch. He's only been a starter for 2+ seasons. Right. But no, like,
I didn't think Brock even played well today, and he outplayed Dak.
I thought he played well in the third quarter.
Yeah.
He wasn't very good in the first half.
No.
But he was really, really good in the third quarter and decent enough in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
Third quarter numbers, Brock Purdy, the Niners scored 21 points. Purdy 7 of 7, 103 yards, a touchdown pass.
He did have a 66-yard touchdown wiped out,
and also had a touchdown
and
that sneak touchdown. So two touchdowns for Brock Purdy in the third quarter.
Missed me with the fourth quarter. 1 for 3 with a 6-yard completion on a 3rd and 10. He was good for 1 quarter. And he still outplayed Dak. Like that's the thing. There was when the Cowboys got the ball back with 3.5 minutes left, it wasn't, oh man, Dak Prescott might really drive them down the field. It was like, oh man, they've lost CeeDee Lamb twice, and they are one more of those away from losing this game. Like that was the larger concern for me. It was not like when Patrick Mahomes comes on the field at the end of the Super Bowl, you're going, uh-oh. Like, hey, Mahomes is going to make plays. Mm-hmm. My concern was not, oh, Dak Prescott's going to make plays. Especially because I thought the 49ers defense, for the most part, save for the 2 touchdowns to CD where they very clearly had some kind of mix-up in communication, I thought they were pretty good for the most part. And yeah. I thought for most of the second half, it was like, oh, this looks like the Niners now. Like this is what we expect the 49ers to look like. It wasn't perfect, but again, I think their issues are so kind of, I don't want to say deep, but they're big enough that they're not just going to get resolved in a week. But I'm
Niners
really
or the Cowboys?
The 49ers.
Okay.
The Cowboys had a bye week and they still looked the way they did.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraged. I thought the 49ers looked more like themselves tonight than they had at really any point this season. And I'm encouraged going into the bye week knowing that they're supposed to get Christian McCaffrey back. Kyle Shanahan said they're going to open his window during the bye week. You get Christian McCaffrey back. You're sitting at 4-4. There are 2 other teams at 4-4 in your division. And they started to play a little better tonight. Like they looked a little more normal where you can start to talk yourself into, okay, man, they trade for a pass rusher, they trade for a linebacker, they get Christian McCaffrey back, and all of a sudden they're cooking.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting about the game to me was we had talked about leading in how the Niners offense didn't look anything like itself in previous weeks, right? Teams were packing the middle of the field, taking away all those in-breaking routes, et cetera, et cetera. The Niners were doing a lot of shotgun stuff, not nearly as much play action under center, all of that type of stuff. And then Mike Zimmer, the Cowboys defensive coordinator, decides to heat up the Niners offense in a significant way, basically every time they're in shotgun, right? Which Chris Collinsworth did a really nice job pointing out during the broadcast. Basically every time the Niners were in a passing situation in shotgun, Zimmer was sending multiple blitzers. And while I think it took the 49ers the first half to sort of figure it out, they absolutely figured it out in the second half. And the Niners offense looked a lot more like what we're used to it looking like, because Brock Purdy's getting the ball out quickly and he's not dropping back and taking 5 seconds to make a decision while his receivers aren't getting separation. Like, I think Zimmer did the 49ers a favor, because you saw like Brock Purdy having to be hot and having to hit George Kittle quickly, because you get George Kittle man-to-man on a safety or a linebacker, like more likely than not, he's going to win that matchup. So when you're just like dropping 8 guys into coverage and playing zone, and like, I think that's a much more effective way to defend the Niners than just sending a blitz every single time they're in shotgun. Like, I thought it allowed Brock Purdy to get in rhythm. I thought it allowed the offense to get going. I thought it led to play action working a little bit more. And so I thought that was like the stylistic story of the game. But it did feel like in that third quarter, like, you definitely saw signs of a Niners team that is closer to what our expectations were coming in than the team that has lost in some really terrible ways to like the Rams and Cardinals, right?
You know what I would love to know is when did the Cowboys get the ball back there in the fourth quarter? When the Cowboys got the ball back with 11:57, I'm talking early in the quarter. And the 49ers went into this like fake prevent defense thing, where they're just letting Dallas kind of get whatever they want, and they go down the field and they go 70 yards in 10 plays and score a touchdown. Next time down, it's 4 and 70 with a touchdown. Like, man, they are not sound enough defensively or offensively to go, oh yeah, here, march down the field and you can score. Like, yeah, I know you're going to take some time to do it. We're good with you taking 4 minutes to go down and score to make it a 2-score game. They're not good enough to do that. And I would love to know the thought process behind, I guess it's eliminate big plays and just don't let them have big plays. But man, they weren't ripping off anything at all, much less a big play. At any point in the game, really. They had the 1 touchdown drive, but their offense hadn't looked impressive. Like, I don't agree with that decision to change what they were doing defensively against Dallas.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, to me, like, watching it was very clearly like, all right, this game very much feels over, and it was more of a human nature, like, letdown thing than, like, obviously you're going to play a softer coverage in that scenario, but I think the players just took their foots off the gas. They
Which
felt
is
like
insane.
it was over.
That's a problem. That's an even bigger problem. Like, dog, you've smoked. You need this game. They've smoked leads against the Rams and the Cardinals, and I don't understand how you can go into a game going, oh, well, foot off the gas. We're good. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a young team. Like, it's a younger team.
No, it's not.
Right.
They're the oldest roster in the league.
But it's Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa and Renardo Green and D Winners, Malik Mustafa.
Thanks.
D Winners, Renardo Green, Sam Aquanu. Like, it's a younger team.
Yeah,
on that side of the
man.
ball. It's the first time coordinator. Like, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying, like, this is not, it's not the 2019 defense. It's just not. So, like, I thought, I didn't really get worried until the second one, when Jair Brown just, like, took out Renardo Green for reasons that, I mean, I don't. That was one of the worst plays I've ever seen a safety make.
I'm a
Full
little
stop.
bit
Like not even bullshitting. Like that, to run over to try to cover somebody, and in the meantime take out the guy covering CeeDee Lamb for a wide open touchdown. I think it's the worst play I've ever seen a safety make.
Outside of, I know he had the interception tonight. Outside of that, I feel like I've seen Jair Brown make way more awful plays than good ones.
It's hard to say with safeties because it's like,
yeah, because they're out of the screen most of the time.
Because they're out of the screen, and like Jimmy Ward, right? Like a lot of times when Jimmy Ward was playing his best ball, you wouldn't really know he was out there a whole lot because he wasn't making a ton of tackles and he wasn't getting targeted. But the fact he wasn't getting targeted in the passing game had a lot of value, right? To like how good he was. It's like playing the deep center of the field and taking a lot of those deep plays away. And I'm not saying Jair Brown is playing at that level, but I'm going to go full film guy on you and be like, I would need to watch the all 22 to get a better feel or not, because he does show up in the run game. And for 3 quarters, the Cowboys had, I think they were getting, the Niners were outgaining them more than 2-1. The Cowboys had like 160 yards of offense through 3 quarters. So I don't know that we should focus too much on the negative right now. Like, to me,
it's the like just reaction with this team this year. No, dude, look, here's go ahead. Sorry, I don't need to.
So considering everything that's happened, and yeah, they've had some terrible losses to some teams that they're clearly better than, right? But to be 4-4, essentially tied for first atop the NFC West, going into the bye week, potentially getting Christian McCaffrey back, like, it's not the worst spot in the world to be. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And if they get McCaffrey back and it unlocks the level that Purdy was at last year, you can probably survive not having Brandon Ayuk if you can get, if you can get 4 or 5 catches a game from Ricky Pearsall, if you can get the occasional big George Kittle game, if you can get a couple big plays from Deebo Samuel, like, you can survive a Brandon Ayuk injury if you get Christian McCaffrey back. And then I would be curious, if you get him back, are the 49ers going to be that team that's running it 40 times a game again? Right. Like, and is that going to help the defense? Is that going to be additive to what the defense does because you're winning time of possession and all of those things? Right. Like, that's complementary football. And that's what I think the 49ers have kind of struggled with when they haven't been running the ball. So I think tonight, the fact that, they had a relatively bad first half, Purdy missing throws, penalties, wiping out big plays, only getting 2 field goals, to bounce back and then go on, what was it, a 24-0 run late between the field goal they had in the second quarter and then the scoring in the third quarter. Like, that to me is like, all right, if the Niners go on a run, like if they win a few in a row and start looking like a contender in the NFC again, I think we can point to third quarter against the Cowboys. They got some traction, and that's what we'll point to. But if not, then it's like, if they still struggle after the bye, then I think we'll say, well, the Cowboys just stink, because I think the Cowboys do stink too. Like, this version of the Cowboys stinks. They have CeeDee Lamb, they have Jake Ferguson and Dak, and that's really it. The offensive line isn't particularly good. The running game stinks. The defense without Micah Parsons stinks. Marcus Lawrence, Ron Bland, like, it's rough right now for the Cowboys. So if the Niners come out and start playing well after the break, I think we look to this third quarter as like, yeah, that might have been their aha moment.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that jumps out to me tonight, save for, George Kittle played really well, and it happened to be National Tight Ends Day. 6 catches, 128 yards, a touchdown for George Kittle. But the thing that I think is also encouraging is you talk about post-bye is you had Isaac Arendo going for 85 yards on 14 carries tonight. Also contributing in the passing game with 3 catches for 17 yards. Ricky Pearsall, 4 for 38 on 4 targets. I thought he looked really good. Malik Mustafa made a couple of really nice plays in the secondary. Renardo Green was outstanding. I know he got hurt and left with an ankle injury. No word on the
Did he get hurt
severity
on the? Did he get hurt?
He
on
had
the
to
play
have.
Jerry Brown took him out.
He had to have. It feels
The
like
play's getting worse
right?
and worse. The worst play a safety has ever made is.
I guess
getting worse
no.
and
Never mind. It didn't. Never mind. That's not right. It didn't have to because that wasn't Dallas's last offensive drive. So it could have gotten hurt on their last drive, I guess. But anyways.
Well, I think Yadam was on the field during that 4 and out.
Okay, then yeah. It had to have been that play. But anyways, Renardo Green was really good for most of the night. Like if the second half is going to come with Christian McCaffrey getting back, hopefully Juwan Jennings being back, and then you get Ricky Pearsall playing well and getting more comfortable in his role, Isaac Arendo as a legitimate like home run threat, and getting more comfortable as a reserve option. That helps with the running back depth that I think we talked about that last week, talking about the trade deadline. And then if you're getting Renardo Green playing at a high level and Malik Mustafa getting comfortable at safety, like it makes life so much easier for your defense. And I think you're kind of seeing that. So that's the other thing I'm looking at is as we move past the bye week is if they continue to get growth from those rookies where you can get Malik Mustafa and Renardo Green playing consistently defensively. Dominic Pooney's been starting at right guard. You sprinkle in Ricky Pearsall as a third receiver, and all of a sudden you're filling in a lot of gaps that you might have with first-year players, which is kind of the ideal.
I think if we want to get really rosy and positive about this,
let's do it. Let's pander. We're here.
49ers had 469 yards of offense with essentially their 4th string running back. Isaac Arendo's their 4th string running back coming in.
Can I drop a stat on you real quick before you continue?
Yeah.
Specifically about that. This is their most total yards of offense through 8 weeks since the 1998 season, per 49ers stats and info. Anyways, go on. Shout out, Pete.
Niners PR. 469 yards of offense with essentially their 4th-string running back. Mm-hmm. Missing Brandon Ayuk, their top receiver. Missing Juwan Jennings, who had been their top receiver statistically. Certainly one of their best third down targets. Playing Ricky Pearsall, a rookie who's basically playing his second game. 469 yards, 7.3 yards per play, 8 of 16 on third down. So finally converting half of your third downs, 3 of 4 in the red zone. This is pretty good stuff given the state of the roster from an injury perspective.
3 or 4 in the red zone, and the one they didn't score on was because they kneeled it out at the end.
Right. So if you get Christian McCaffrey back, if you get Juwan Jennings back, if you get Jordan Mason a little bit more healthy, Isaac Arendo, we should probably talk about him a little bit more. Just
please.
The explosiveness and the confidence he had running was in very stark contrast to how he looked earlier in the season.
Absolutely.
Because what Kyle Shanahan always preaches with running backs is be decisive, hit the hole as hard as you can, put your foot in the ground, cut up field, and go, and utilize that speed that you have. And Garendo early on in the season just kind of tiptoeing around and kind of doing that thing that Shanahan doesn't really like when it comes to it's why Carlos Hyde never worked for Kyle Shanahan, right? Carlos Hyde could run outside zone, but Carlos Hyde would also dance in the backfield and try to hit the hole rather than just hitting it, right? And that's what made Raheem Mostert so successful in Kyle Shanahan's offense, was that he was so fast but also super decisive that when he found a hole and he put his foot in the ground and planted upfield, he was going. Garendo has that potential from a pure speed perspective. But it's pretty clear, or at least it felt pretty clear, because of his lack of reps in training camp in the preseason and even early on in the regular season, Kyle Shanahan didn't have a whole lot of confidence in him. The fact that we went into the game saying, maybe the 49ers need to get a running back at the trade deadline because, if you lose Mason, then and McCaffrey's not back, what do you really have? Well, tonight it was Isaac Guerrero, and he looked really, really good, and promising in the sense that, like, man, you get your top running back, and you get JP Mason's shoulder a little bit more healthy, and all of a sudden you have depth at running back, and that could be massive for them, right? Because this is a team that's been dealing with injuries like crazy.
Yeah.
Their depth hasn't been great.
Yeah.
So to finally get somebody like that emerge, I think it could be really positive for the second half.
Yeah, big time. He was I not a lot of wiggle, not a lot of like make people miss in his game. but man,
it's like Raheem Mostert, same thing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's just, like you said, it is night and day. There's still some bouts with running into his own lineman. I think like a little more patience as he grows into the offense will be nice. But man, the foundation is there as remember the way Mostert started out in the Niners offense? He would get like 4 or 5 touches a game, and he'd run for 40 yards on those 4 or 5 touches, and that was just kind of it. That was his role. And then Tevin Coleman got hurt, and did someone, maybe Matt Breida, and Mostert just kind of got thrust into that larger role. But I could absolutely see that being a role for Guerrero, because even with Christian McCaffrey back, you have to manage his injury. I can't fathom a world where he's coming back and they're immediately like, yeah, here's 22 touches a game. That's what he averaged last year. Here's 22 touches a game. You're the guy. I can't imagine they're going to do that. And if you have a 1-2 punch with Mason, who's obviously been very effective, and then you have Isaac Guerrero, he get 4 or 5 touches a game on outside zones. Showed a little effectiveness as a pass catcher tonight. Maybe he can slip in some screens. I think you're right. When you're down a Brandon Ayuk, I think having as many different weapons and as many different clubs in your bag as you can is a pretty big deal. Aside, injuries aside, that's obviously a big piece of this. But yeah, man, despite how kind of the fourth quarter, the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter went, this to me was really encouraging for the 49ers, especially since like they looked so bad in the first half. And then they come out and just look like the 49ers in the third quarter. They got a stop they needed to get at the end of the game. They closed the game out on offense. They actually managed to get a first down they needed. I just really, really, really encouraged across the board. Again, not that it's perfect. There's a long way to go, but you could see it trending the right direction going into their week off.
I think we can say some similar things about Ricky Pearsall too. And we don't need to reiterate like the story, like how crazy it is that he's actually like alive and playing football, but just the standpoint that this was a guy who was super limited even in the preseason before the shooting happened because of the shoulder thing. Didn't appear in any preseason games. Nope. I think participated in like half or between like a third and a half of training camp practices. To come out and he just felt like a reliable option. Like the numbers completed all 4 of the targets to him and had that big run in the fourth quarter for 39 yards on the jet sweep. It's pretty hard for rookies to be effective early on in their careers in a Kyle Shanahan offense. 1, it's obviously difficult to earn Kyle Shanahan's trust. 2, it's difficult to learn the offense. You always hear guys talk about it. I've talked about this with George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk a bunch of times, right? Like the first time you're in Kyle Shanahan's offense, you're like a chicken with your head cut off. You don't really know what's going on. You're just trying not to screw up. For Pearsall to be in, and he's also played multiple receiver spots already, right? Like he wasn't supposed to play Brandon Ayuk's position last week. Like that was obviously Ayuk, right? But like he's had to play multiple receiver roles, and they're very different. Like the X and the Z and the F are all very different positions. So he's learning multiple positions. He's only had a few weeks of practice. He's catching targets. He's doing enough to allow Kyle Shanahan to give him a jet sweep.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, like 4 catches for 38 yards with a long of 13, like, isn't crazy. But, like,
in his second game
after getting shot,
Yeah.
and, like, I think he converted a couple third downs too. I thought that's really promising for Pearsall, because I think how confident they are in his ability to contribute is going to go a long way towards determining if they feel like they need to go get a receiver before the deadline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like you feel good about, like if Pearsall, if you feel good about Pearsall, then all right, that's a first round pick. And then Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings, like there are certainly worse starting receiving cores in the league than, a healthy Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Deebo Samuel.
I got to figure out what
I think he was encouraging. Sorry.
I got to figure out what Jacob Cowing's doing. He can't do that? He can't take a jet sweep? He's not capable of doing so? Hey, two things. Weird. I would love to know. I would love to sit down with Kyle Shanahan off the record and just be like, dog, what's he do wrong? Why can't he or shoes on the wrong feet? Like, what's the deal here? Two things on Pearsall. One, I thought it was hilarious. 3rd and short early in the game, the 49ers get an illegal formation penalty on a QB sneak because Ricky Pearsall was lined up in the wrong place. They went like bunch formation on the right side, and he was up front when he needed to be behind Chris Conley. And so they're like trying to move around. It's like, bros, just stand there. You're not doing anything. Yeah. You're good. You can just.
I've never seen a false start by a receiver on a quarterback sneak.
I mean, come on, dudes. But anyways, the way Chris Collinsworth talked about Ricky Pearsall after or during his jet sweep was crazy disrespectful. It was unbelievable. So they're showing the replay, and Collinsworth, no, he's doing his Collinsworth thing. And he's like, no, he's not the fastest guy. He's slow as shit, and he really doesn't do anything. He's not that great of a receiver, but man, what a guy coming back from being shot. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy.
He's not the fastest guy, and he's not the best receiver. Like,
it's like, oh my God.
Like, oh, so Ricky Pearsall sucks then. Weird.
Like, that was just insane. Like, if this was some rando, like, undrafted guy, okay, fine. If that was Ronnie Bell, 7th round pick, and he wants to be like, yeah, he's not the fastest guy, not the best receiver, but man, he goes and makes plays. Okay, that's one thing. It's like a 1st round rookie. He's 31st overall pick. Oh my God.
I looked up Ricky Pearsall's spider graph.
Oh, nice.
Because I remember I was like, I think he tested pretty well. 4.41 in the 40.
Yeah, that's fast, dude.
That's fast. 82nd percentile among receivers. But where he's kind of crazy athletic, like 97% in the vertical jump. He had a 42-inch vert. Like, Ricky Pearsall could be in like a dunk contest with that type of vertical. 3 cone drills, 6.64, 93rd percentile. Like, he's.
And Collins were talking about him like he's just like some scrub. It's like, oh my God.
Right.
That was just wild. I was shocked at that. I know he was trying to get to like what a story. But hey, 1st round pick couldn't play for 6 weeks because he got shot and then came back and is contributing. It's still a good story, Chris. You don't need to make him seem like he's bad.
Right. Like, he's just kind of a scrub, but look at him now.
Look at him go.
All right,
Chris. Yeah. You got it.
I think in fairness to Collinsworth, I think if you were to ask him, are you thrilled with that call? I think he would probably say, yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Anyways,
so
yeah, do that. Yeah, Zach Oliverson in the YouTube chat. We're live on YouTube right now, by the way. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Candlestick Chronicles Podcast. If you are watching, please hit the little thumbs up button. We would appreciate the heck out of that.
Tell your friends. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, please.
We're so close to 1,000.
Yeah,
we would love that so much. Said, how about special teams not giving up something major tonight? You know what? That's a great point. Because that was one of our biggest concerns in our preview pod was like, hey, the Niners are giving up like 18 yards per punt return and 43 yards per kick return. And Kevontae Turpin is the best punt/kick returner in the league. He might flip this game. And when you see how the game went down, the Cowboys could have, it was 10-6 at the half. The Cowboys could have returned a kick or a punt and pulled away in the first half, where now the Niners are fighting way uphill. They could have easily, in the fourth quarter there, when the Niners were punting or kicking off, or even in the third quarter, housed one and kept the game from getting out of hand. So shout out to the Niners special teams, man. They were very good. And Anders Carl's perfect from 3 for 3 and field goals.
And like right down the middle on his field goals too. Do we have a kicking controversy on our hands post-bye?
Look, I don't want to belabor this point. But the 49ers have now had to sign 2 kickers off the street for weeks 7 and 8. Check that. 6, 7, and 8. And they have yet to miss a field goal. I'm just saying.
Jake Moody Ewing theory?
I'm not. I wasn't trying to bring up. It's just that, like, maybe don't use a top 100 pick on a kicker when there's dudes just on the street who can go 3 for 3 in a game for you.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's a great point. Don Pearsall. Anyways, what do you think of Brock Purdy tonight?
I thought he was rough in the first half. The fourth down crosser to Debo should have been a huge play.
That was the one. That was the one that got me.
He threw it behind him.
Ugh.
I don't know if Brock Purdy's to blame for this, but there were those 2 3rd and longs where if you're watching on the broadcast, you can hear the quarterback give the signals, right? And Brock Purdy, 3rd and long, 2 times is going, can, and then the Niners run the ball. One was I forget exactly what. It's in my notes, but there were 2 of them. Why is Brock checking into a running play on 3rd and long? And I think one of them they were near midfield, so maybe it was like, hey, if you like a running play here, we're going to go for it on 4th down, so it's not like a super big deal. But I'm just kind of like, I don't love that, but I don't know how much to put that directly on Brock. But his numbers in the first half were fine, except for that 4th quarter throw, that 4th down throw. I thought the bigger issue were the penalties. To be honest, like I thought obviously that was a bad throw from Brock, but like you're gonna have bad throws every now and again. The penalties where, you have Debo Samuel's long touchdown negated, and who knows, maybe Brock takes a sack on that play if Eric Saubert's not holding the Cowboys defender right in front of Brock. But 3rd quarter he was great. That throw to Kittle on the crosser where he layered it like just outside of Kendrick's reach, where Kittle ended up running towards the sideline was a great throw.
They showed the behind Purdy view on that, and he threw it like so. Kittle has to run behind Kendricks, and he threw it while Kittle was still on one side of Kendricks. He had to clear him entirely, and Purdy threw it before Kittle had even gotten behind him. That was a really freaking nice throw.
Yeah. So it wasn't a great Purdy game, but like when you look at it overall and you see that he threw for 260, he averaged 10 yards an attempt, and then he added 56 yards on the ground, including a touchdown. And how many 3rd downs did he convert with his legs? 2 or 3?
Yeah, a couple. Made a couple of really, really nice plays with his legs.
Yeah, and the play where they had that shovel pass that the Cowboys edge defender clearly jumped, right? And he was like ready to intercept the toss to Debo and take it the other way for a touchdown. For Brock just to like hold that and not make that play and then turn it into a 16-yard gain was super impressive. I know Kyle Shanahan talked about it in his press conference afterwards.
And to not just fall down. Like,
Right.
I think a lot of quarterbacks hold the ball there, but they just fall down and take a sack.
Like, if Jimmy Garoppolo's running that play, like, it's a touchdown the other way.
That's 6 for sure. The other way.
Like it just is. No offense to Jimmy, but
Zach Oliverson, MVP of the show so far, said, I thought I read this week that Purdy doesn't call audibles at the line of scrimmage. The can call is built into the play call from Shanahan. Yeah, that's right. There was this big storyline. There was this big storyline this week that Brock Purdy doesn't get to change plays at the line because he told reporters, I don't call audibles, it's built into the call. So he gets multiple play calls, and then he goes to the line, he looks, and you'll hear him say, you can hear it on the broadcast, he goes, can. For Alex Smith, it was kill. You always hear kill. And,
or it was let it roll.
Right. Which is, and you heard Purdy tonight, and you heard him say it on the broadcast, it was reload. He canned and then reloaded the original play. So he does that at the line, and that's just what Kyle Shanahan does. Instead of saying, here's a play, and then the quarterback can go to the line and has to think about, like, okay, what other play would work instead? You have 2 plays, you know what you're looking at. And
I do think it's up to, like, Purdy's making that decision. Like, do I change the play to the secondary call?
Correct.
Or, so that's what I'm saying. Like, third and long, like, maybe you don't have the best look in a pass play, but, like, I don't know. In that moment, it just didn't feel like we haven't seen the 49ers convert a whole lot of explosive runs on third and long.
Boy,
you know? Yeah. So just that was my criticism of that.
I also thought, and this is largely, I guess, a George Kittle point, but we saw a little bit of it with Deebo Samuel too. I feel like the yak was back tonight. I just can't. George Kittle by himself had 3 or 4 runs in this after the catch in this game that it was like, oh yeah, that's what that looks like. It just felt like we hadn't really seen it yet this year. Deebo had a couple of nice ones.
Mm-hmm.
That was good to see, and that's another reason, going post bye. It's like, man, if they can include that into their offense on top of Brock Purdy's ability to kind of push it down the field and having that as more of a secondary thing, that would be a really, really significant deal because their offense just is so much harder to stop, I think, when they're rolling like that.
That's why I thought it was a little bit surprising that Mike Zimmer was so intent on blitzing as often as he did.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, when you don't blitz and if you have all those players deep downfield, that's going to take away yards after the catch opportunities. When you're sending linebackers to rush the passer all these times, and you get George Kittle match up with a safety and he's running a slant or a post or a crossing route or whatever. Like, Kittle out of his break is a pretty explosive guy. And when you have linebackers upfield at the quarterback, you're not going to be able to get back and cover him, or you're not playing like a super deep zone shell where you can have a bunch of defenders converge on ball carriers, taking away those yards after catch opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, like, that's what I think Steve Spagnuolo does a really good job of. Like, the Chiefs defensive coordinator does a really good job of blitzing in the right moments.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's a very delicate balance when you're playing a Kyle Shanahan offense as to not blitz so much, because when you do blitz and the quarterback is good at recognizing the blitz, it's kind of like having the answer to the test, like, early in the play, right? Like, oh, this guy's blitzing here. This is where the ball needs to go.
Right.
And that's when you see Brock Purdy get the ball out of his hands quickly. Whereas if you're not blitzing and you're just dropping everybody into coverage, Brock's like, all right, who's open?
Mm-hmm.
It's not somebody's blitzing and I know immediately who's going to be open because this guy's going to be uncovered because he's running this route. And this is where the blitz is coming from.
Yeah.
So I almost think you're doing the 49ers a favor if you're blitzing heavily. But I think, like, but the difference is, the balance is, for Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs, he would do it on like a third down and it would be disguised, and like he hadn't done it like that look at all in the game. And then Kyle Shanahan thinks he has a perfect play for this look, and then, oh shit, this surprising blitz is coming through this gap that we didn't have protected, and I have to get the ball out, but I can't get the ball out there because that's where the blitzers, like, that's what separates Steve Spagnuolo from the other guys, particularly when it comes to defending Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It never looked like. I think there were a couple of points, maybe late in the game after Samuel went out, where the 3rd and 10. No, was there a 3rd and 6? It might have been a 3rd and 6. When it was a 3rd down, and Debo wasn't in the game, and Purdy just looked super indecisive on letting the throw rip, and that I kind of chalked that up to the fact that it was like Ronnie Bell and Chris Conley on the field with him. So I don't want to. I thought for the most part though, to what you're saying, he was pretty decisive all night. I think he still struggles to throw from clean pockets, which is kind of weird. But
so you said that, and I looked at the numbers. The PFF numbers don't really agree with you on that.
Interesting.
Because so before tonight, not including tonight, his best passer rating this season in terms of kept clean under pressure, not blitz when blitz. Best passer rating 96.9 is when he's kept clean.
Well, but that's I think it's a little different though.
Okay.
Like when he steps, but it just when he steps up into a pocket and it's a little bit muddy, it just he doesn't. He misses a lot from that.
Sure.
Spot. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the difference is like kept clean versus pressure, 9.5 yards per attempt when kept clean. That's a good number. Under pressure, 6.7 yards per attempt. And when blitzed, he's at, there's not every blitz leads to a pressure, but when he's blitzed, he's at 8.4 yards per attempt. So I think the logic, if you're Dallas and you do decide to blitz a lot, you're just like, well, we don't have the guys because, Micah Parsons hurt. We don't have the guys to generate enough pressure, so we have to blitz and get to a scenario where we're pressuring Brock Purdy because his numbers are clearly worse when he's pressured.
Yes. Sure.
But the other side of that is it speeds up Brock Purdy's thinking, and then all of a sudden you have like this rhythm passing game that is like probably more deadly than the 7-step drop game that the Niners like to do sometimes.
Yeah, man. For the most part, though, like I guess when Purdy doesn't play well, he's still better than a lot of quarterbacks in the league. Obviously, you have games like against Kansas City where he was particularly really bad, but it's like I did not think he was super effective tonight, and he was still pretty good. And that's just kind of, I think, where he is as a player. And we're going to continue to learn about him, too, because we don't know what this Deebo Samuel rib injury is just yet. But getting Juwan Jennings back will be nice. Getting Christian McCaffrey back will be nice. But, man, if it's a lot of Ricky Pearsall, if it's a lot of Chris Conley, if it's a lot of Ronnie Bell, like it's going to be on Purdy to make some plays and continue making plays, which I think we saw him do tonight for the most part.
Yeah, I think the thing with Purdy is like every quarterback is under a microscope. And I think we're in this mode right now where we just kind of assume that this contract thing is going to come to a head at some point. And we got to figure out, like, man, do the Niners want to pay him? Do they want to pay him $60 million a year? Is he only worth 40? Like, should he take a little bit less than some of the other elite guys? Or would his camp argue that his numbers are so good that, he's worth top of the market? He should be one of the highest paid players in the league. Like, I think there are tons of different ways to look at it. But if you just zoom out, irrespective of all that contract stuff, like quarterbacks have good and bad games, right? Like last year, the conversation around Patrick Mahomes was like, this isn't the same. The offense isn't nearly as good. Like, what's wrong with Pat?
It's a conversation now.
Well, right. And then he goes out and wins a Super Bowl. Right. So I think we tend to react to single games. I mean, the NFL, you only have 17 games. Like, it's obviously way different than the other sports where you have so many more games. You have 82 basketball games, 162 baseball games, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But like, I think the wisest thing to do when it comes to evaluating whether or not the 49ers should pay Brock Purdy is just see how the season goes. and not try, see what happens throughout the season, see how he responds to guys being injured, see what it looks like, see how he plays when guys are back versus when they're injured, see how far you go in the playoffs, see how he plays in the playoffs. Like, we don't have to do the thing where, like, we need Brock Purdy to look like an MVP candidate every game like he did last year to decide to determine whether or not he should get paid, in my opinion.
Sure. Yep.
Not that I know anybody who does that.
I do. No, man. I don't know. If you're sitting here right now on October 27th, like, yep, that guy is definitely a $65 million quarterback, then all right. I'm skeptical.
I think there's a middle ground, and we'll have plenty
But
of
also,
time to
Dak
talk about
Prescott's
this.
making fucking $60 million, so I guess that's just the going rate, even if you're going to be mid as fuck.
Right. Like, you could probably do, like,
I don't know. I just so aggressively dropping
5 and 250, and like, it's still obviously a whole lot of money, but it's not 65 million a year that some of these other guys get.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's constructed in a way where it's fungible, so you can sign guys or not sign guys.
Yeah.
Guarantee money, whatever. Like, I think he's better than Tua. I think he's probably closer to Jordan Love. I think it's wild that we never talk about Jordan Love as and like how he relates to the system that he plays in. Maybe it's because his receivers aren't like all pro guys or star guys who are at like the top of the market when it comes to how much they get paid. Maybe that's the difference. But like, Jordan Love
it's
runs
because
a very
he's big
similar...
and throws the ball far.
Right. Anyway. It's funny. Like, there's a weird, and maybe this is like too galaxy brain for this.
Hell yeah. No, let's get into it. Come on.
Could you make an argument that some of the film watchers,
Capital F, capital M,
are biased towards traits, like too biased towards traits?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, oh, this dude's tall and has a big arm.
Dude,
and
no,
like makes some wow throws, so I'm way more impressed than that guy, even though he plays the position and makes decisions and is accurate at a substantially lower rate than this other guy who's 6'1".
It's the ceiling.
With an average arm.
Yeah, it's the ceiling. Yeah. It's the, wow, look at all these throws that, I don't know, look at all these awesome throws that Justin Herbert makes. But we're going to ignore all the bad ones, all the bad plays, because look at how good all these good plays are. Whereas with Brock Purdy, there's the ceiling isn't as high as a player, right? Just from a physical tool standpoint. The best version of Brock Purdy, the very best version of Brock Purdy, is not going to be quite as good as the very best version of Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence or Jordan Love or whoever, right? Just from a physical standpoint. So I think that's where they just get so much. It gets this benefit of the doubt. They get so much more benefit of the doubt than Brock Purdy does. And every bad Purdy plays confirmation bias of like, oh yeah, see, can't have that because he has to be perfect in all the other aspects because he doesn't have the arm strength to make up for it or something. I don't know. We've reached a point that Josh Allen turning the ball over is good, so I've given up.
Under previous rules, Brock Purdy led a Super Bowl winning drive in overtime last year.
Yes.
That would have like cemented him as like a Super Bowl champion quarterback who orchestrated the game-winning drive in overtime, and the Niners kicked the game-winning field goal. But because they changed the rules, and it's good that they changed the rules, but because of that, we look at Brock Purdy like, I'm not really sure. Whereas there have been other guys who have won Super Bowls in overtime with game-winning field goal drives, to where it's like that's like cemented their legacy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, you're right. If Purdy had beat Mahomes last year on a game-winning field goal drive in the Super Bowl, he would have been the guy that took down Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
No, it's like, I don't love his arm strength.
Yeah. I thought tonight, here's what I will say. I thought tonight he did a way better job of, well, I thought he missed some throws. And that fumble at the end of the half that took him out of field goal range is just like dude.
Yeah, that happened in Minnesota too.
That was a
brutal.
Jimmy G ass play. That is just 1,000% what that reminded me of. But I will say that I thought he did a better job of, now game manager always gets thrown around as like a bad thing, but managing the game is such a vital part of playing the position. And I thought he managed the game better tonight. Took checkdowns, took short throws, wasn't trying to do too much with his legs. He made plays with his legs for sure, but I thought they were all pretty appropriate. It wasn't like, dude, there was a throw there. Why didn't you just take it? I thought he was a lot better at that tonight.
Yeah. And Brock Purdy, the game manager moniker that Brock Purdy gets is hilarious when you like actually look at like his average depth of target and all that stuff. Like the only guy throwing it further deep downfield was Anthony Richardson.
And that's because Anthony Richardson can't.
Yeah.
Did you see he quit today?
Yeah, not a great look.
Said he was too tired to keep playing.
I mean, I've been there.
Like, buddy,
but I'm not an NFL quarterback, so
right. If you had texted me tonight and been like, "Hey man, I'm gassed. I don't want to do the pod," I'd be like, "All right, bro, got you."
It's happened before.
But you can't do that as a NFL quarterback. No, good win for the 49ers, man. Any win in this spot would have been good. They just needed a victory for sure. And yeah, it got a little dicey there in the fourth quarter, but the defense closed the door. They did what they had to do, and they got to 4-4.
And I think you do feel pretty good about some of the young guys contributing at this point.
Definitely.
Because it's always frustrating when it's like, oh, Isaac Yiadom's on the field again, and there he's getting picked on in a big moment. Like when you have Renardo Green, who's like much more talented, and you obviously invested a second-round pick, and you hope he can be a starter next year. For him to assume that role and play a hell of a lot better than Isaac Yiadom did, I think is an excellent development. For Malik Mustafa to come in and make plays in the passing game, like I never really had concern about Mustafa as like a tackler or a hitter or playing downhill or near the line of scrimmage. Like he always seemed like one of those kinds of safeties. But for him to break up that pass in the end zone against that like 8'5" tight end,
that was sick.
That the Cowboys have, that was a great play. And the sequence where I think it was Ferguson on the next snap, third down, where they go out and tackle him in open space, force that fumble. The Cowboys recovered it, but
that was insane. It was nuts that he recovered that fumble.
Yeah.
There were 4 49ers around the ball, and somehow Ferguson got it.
It's kind of bounced right to him. But like I think Green and Mustafa deserve to be discussed as like as encouraging as, you know, Garendo and Pearsall. And potentially Pooney. I mean, Dominic Pooney is still the best rookie the 49ers have right now, but like the fact that you have a cornerback, a safety, a guard, a receiver, and a running back all contributing, like that's good stuff, because you remember like the 49ers were really, really good in 2019 because they got a lot from their rookie class on top of like had guys that they drafted turn into star players. And I don't know that any of these rookies are going to be star players, but the fact that they can contribute to winning early on in their careers, I think is a really good sign for where they're at right now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Maybe they're starters in the future. Maybe they're all pros. Maybe they're not. But if you're getting contributions there for now, that's a significant development for sure. That's all I got.
You're not going to be able to pay everybody, so you're going to have some rookies step in and play well.
Yep, for sure. You got anything else?
No, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tell your friends about our YouTube channel and about our podcast as a whole. Shout out to Lamb Chops. Shout out to Cooperage Brewing. Shout out to Navage. Shout out to Prize Picks. Oh, Prize Picks.
Oh, yeah. Dude, how did we not lead with this?
Buddy.
Dude, we'll fix it in post. We'll open with this. Go on, please.
Hit a big multiplier on a power play.
That's big time. Congratulations.
Listen. if you listen to the podcast, you listen to my prize picks, and you're familiar with the fortune or lack thereof I've had with some power plays, to hit on a let's see what we have, a 7.5x power play.
That's huge.
Jordan Mason fewer than 80.5. That hit, but not for I wasn't banking on Mason to get hurt. I didn't love. I just didn't think he was going to have a big game. Prescott, man, I was Dak Prescott. I had fewer than 249.5 passing yards. He finished with 243. That final drive, he had like 116 or something going into the fourth quarter. And so I was like, man, this could be like a really tough beat. But he ended up finishing with 243, so I hit that. Yep. Anders Carlson, everyone's favorite kicker, makes 3 field goals, well over the more than 100 or 1.5 field goals made. And then I had Brock Purdy for more than 241.5 passing yards. He had 260. A 7.5x multiplier. Man, might buy some sodas after this.
Love that. We're throwing the ticker up on you, on the video. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code Candlestick and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup.
This wedding might get paid for after all.
Come on. Love this. When are you retiring? Can I hold $1?
I'll buy you a soda. How about that?
Buy me a case of Cooperage.
Sure.
Thanks.
Of course. Yeah, that's all I got though. Shout out to Prize Picks.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube right now, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe while you're here. Tell your friends. We're really close to 1,000 subscribers, which would be super dope to get to. So if you could let your friends know who are 49er fans, we go live after games. We are doing pods 3 times a week. Having a ton of fun doing this as always. And hopefully going to have more good 49er football coming up in November, December. So.
And we also have some good guests. Had some good guests.
Yeah, Jordan Mason, Kyle Juszczyk, George Kittle's been on the pod. Fred Warner was on the pod this year.
Patrick Willis.
Been on the pod
multiple times. Jerry Rice, Joe Staley.
Oh yes.
Man, the list of, I mean, Mayoko and Barrows come on from time to time. Just like it's a good podcast.
We couldn't quite line up Chosen Anderson, but there were talks.
There were deep negotiations.
All right. Thanks, Manny.
All right. We'll see you guys later in the week.